Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Raina Mo's Designs. Today we're going to be in the kitchen. You know, with everything that's going on in the world, some of us feel like, you just have no control of what's going on. And it's true, to a point, you don't. Um, but there is a point where you do. You can do some things that will help you be as prepared as you possibly can. And one of the simple things that a lot of people have forgotten about, the art of making bread. Bread saves people, especially during famines and when you have food shortages. If the grocery stores don't have bread, then you don't have to starve without it, if that's something that you want. Or if we get to a point in time where you won't be able to get to a store to buy bread because of inclement weather or what have you. You can always make bread because people almost always have flour in their homes, even if they forget why they bought the flour in the first place. So that's what we're going to be doing today. I'm going to teach you just a simple bread recipe, and you don't even have to have a mixer. This one being the first one that I do, I'm going to do everything by hand and scratch. And there's not going to be a lot of kneading, which, in case you didn't know what kneading is, it's basically working the bread so that you can help the gluten bonds build. I'm using bread flour, which automatically you're getting kind of a head start with that gluten build just because of the flour that I'm using. But you can use all-purpose flour as well. And I'm going to show you the different ingredients that go into it and how we make it, everything by scratch from hand. So there's not much kneading. You don't have to worry if you don't have a KitchenAid or some special kind of mixer or anything, or a bread machine. It's just something simple that you use your hands to create, and your oven. I'm not even gonna use a Dutch oven, or which is a pot. In case you didn't know, it's a special pot with a lid on it. You probably have one at home and you've never used it for that reason as a Dutch oven. But I'm gonna use just what I have, which is a pizza stone. Now, I also have Dutch oven. I also have cast iron skillets and kettles, but I want this to be simple. Anybody who is young and thinks making bread is something so difficult or hard to do, you're going to learn today that no, it's a life-saving skill that is so easy. But because we have been spoiled with convenience foods, convenience everything nowadays, we lose that simple skill. And we should all be ashamed of ourselves if we feel like we can't make bread when we can. Okay? So, the four ingredients that we're going to need obviously is flour, water, which you can get out of your pipes. You can use bottled water, you can use filtered water, you can use Berkey filtered water, whatever. But flour that you always have in your cabinets, water that you always have in your sink, salt that you always have on your table. You kind of want it to be a fine grain salt. You don't want to use coarse salt. But if coarse salt is all you have, throw it in a Ziploc baggie. Take a little rolling pin or a little hammer wrapped in a towel and break it up and make it smaller. And yeast. Yeast is probably the only thing that you would have to make sure that you keep in your pantry that you wouldn't normally think to keep because you don't normally make bread. Okay? So basically you have everything that you need to survive already in your pantry, with the exception probably for most of us is yeast. But guess what? You can also make unleavened bread, but that is a totally different video. So if that sounds like it interests you, if that sounds like a skill that you need to start working on and be able to provide bread for your family and maybe your friends, keep on watching. All right. So what we're going to be using, like I said, is water. And we're going to use 1.5 cups of water. For our flour, I'm using bread flour. You can use all-purpose flour, but for this recipe, you're gonna need 3 cups of flour, and then you'll need a little bit extra on the side. You're gonna need salt, and it's only 1 teaspoon of salt, and your yeast. Your yeast, we're gonna use 2.5 teaspoons of yeast, okay? Now, as far as tools are concerned, you're gonna need a bowl, any kind of bowl. A lot of people like to use glass bowls or plastic bowls. Whatever kind of bowl you have that's large enough for you to hold your dough, that's what you should use. I have a scraper, 2 different kinds, and these are plastic scrapers so I can actually get into the bowl and scrape down the sides. I have some parchment paper that I've pre-cut and I folded just so that it is more usable and user-friendly, if you will. Y'all know how I am with opening things and such. And then a kitchen towel. Okay, now if you want to be a real technical baker, I do have the digital scale that you can use so that you can weigh your product, but we're doing this for a beginner bread maker, somebody who's just learning how to make bread, and you don't want to be scared at making bread because it's very, very easy to do. Okay, whenever you're doing bread and doing any kind of baking, you have to be aware of the fact that you're going to have dry products and you're going to have wet products, okay? Obviously, your flour, your salt is a dry product. If you wanted to put a pinch of sugar in it, that's considered a wet product. And your yeast, I consider yeast a wet product. Why? Because you have to use it with water. Now your water, it needs to be warm, and you don't want it to be cold, okay? And the reason for that is because you want to help activate your yeast. That's why people might put a little bit of sugar in the water to help the yeast. But I just got this yeast this morning because I ran out. So because of that, I know that it's fresh. So even though it's active dry yeast, not instant yeast, I know it's fresh. So, and you heard that pop. So I'm okay with not having sugar added to this. But you do want to start your yeast off in water so that it can go ahead and it can bloom and start activating while you're doing the rest of your measurements. So for the yeast, I'm going to be using 2.5 teaspoons of yeast. And I'm going to place it in. So that's my 1 teaspoon right there. I'm going to need 2.5 of those. And you're going to have it leveled. It's 1, 2, and my 1/2 teaspoon is right here. And now I'm going to close up my yeast. Now it says after you open it, you need to refrigerate it. So that's what I'm doing. I'm sticking it in the refrigerator. Now I have a wooden spoon, just a simple wooden spoon. I'm going to just mix this up. You could use a whisk, whatever is good for you, but I'm trying to keep everything out of metal until it all gets incorporated together. So I'm just going to mix this up so it can start doing what it needs to do. And you'll see that it'll make bubbles and all that goodness with its warm water. Now, you see that there's salt sitting here, right? So we're going to use this salt, but we are not putting that salt in with the yeast. Why? Because it will kill your yeast. So you do not, and I repeat, you do not mix your salt with your yeast. Now you will see people in other videos mix the salt and the yeast together without the water in their flour. That is one other way for you to do it. But keep in mind, just thinking common sense, The reason that they're able to put the salt and the yeast together is because they obviously must be using instant yeast, or they really trust their active dry yeast. So they didn't put it in water and activate it. And that is the reason why they can put it in on dry ingredients together, because they didn't already mix it. Okay, so I'm going to set this aside, and now we're going to work on our flour. Okay, so I hope y'all can see this, but I'm just going to take my flour. And I've got my 1 cup measurement, and you need 3 cups of flour. Now this flour does not need to be, it doesn't need to be a heaping cup of flour, y'all. It needs to just be leveled off. Okay, so that's my 1 cup. That's my 2. And here is my 3rd cup of flour. Okay, and like I told you, we'll need a little bit, so I just grab a very, very little in my cup, and then I'm gonna set it over here. Okay, back in the bag, but it's already dipped, so we're ready to go on that. And me personally, what I like to do is start making a well in my flour. Why do I like to do that? Just from me making pasta, you start building your dough inward when you put your yeast and water into the flour. So next, we're going to go ahead and we're going to get our 1 tablespoon. Only reason why you are using a little salt in your bread is because your bread will have absolutely no kind of taste or flavor without this salt in it. So there's my 1 teaspoon, and I'm gonna get and add my fine salt to it. Now we're here in Texas, so the salt is kind of sticking together a little bit. So just bide your time with me, okay? Okay. So there it is right there. And so there are all of our ingredients. There is our flour. There is our salt. Here is our yeast. Here is our water right here. So we have everything that we need. Now I'm going to mix the salt in with the flour, and then I'm going to make my well again. And then I'm going to pour in my active yeast. And this is again dry active yeast, not instant yeast. Okay? And so this is how I make my well. Okay? Now I can see, I don't know if you guys can, but there are bubbles in there where the yeast is making its joyful goodness. And I'm just going to stir it again and pour everything in, because I want all of that goodness in. And now I'm just going to start working that flour into this water and yeast and begin with my dough. Okay? And you're gonna see that your dough is gonna be incorporated pretty quickly, and it's gonna make its dough. And the dough is gonna be a shaggy dough. You guys may have heard that terminology before, and you may not have. And what a shaggy dough is it's a wet dough. Okay, this is the reason why you're not gonna have to do a lot of kneading, or any kneading basically. And kneading is basically working the dough by hand for like 10, sometimes 15 minutes, depending on what kind of dough it is that you're making. Okay? So you see how that's coming together? Now it looks like there was a little too much flour in the bowl, but I guarantee you it's not. Okay? It's not. So once you get it to a point where you can actually start working with it with your hand, and which I'm not going to use, I'm going to use my scrape. I just don't like getting my hands really dirty. Even though they're clean, I don't know. It bothers me when I know I'm doing it in the beginning. Once the dough starts coming together, it's a lot easier for me. Now you could use a wooden spoon. If I had a different type of wooden spoon that wasn't painted and was round, you could use that like a stick to work the dough and have it come together too. There's this tool called a Danish whisk, which, as y'all know, when I remember, I put the links down below for you guys. You know, and I'm going to try my best to do that for you, and put the Danish whisk down. But that's another tool that you can use also, besides your hand, with your hands, on this bread making journey that we're going on. But you guys will see that in time. So you see how that dough just came together, and you can tell that it's not completely dry. It has a little bit, just a little bit of moisture and tackiness to it, as you can see. Okay? And it's pulling away from the bowl, as you can see, pretty well. Okay? So that's really all that I need to do with this particular bread dough for right now. Okay? So what I'm going to do now, I'm just trying to get it to the very, very center of the bowl. And it pulls away pretty good. Okay? See, it still has a little bit of stickiness to it. Once you have everything incorporated together, I'm going to take these and clean that up. You want to go ahead and you want to cover it with your towel. We're going to let it rest for 1 hour. Okay? And there we go. And I'll see you guys back in 1 hour. 1 hour. So as you can hear, the beeper, we have waited our 1 hour. You might want to wait a little longer sometimes, but now we're going to check and see. Oh, wow, look at that. Our bread dough. Can you see how tall that is? And the texture that you see on that bread, that is exactly the texture that you want to see. Now I'm going to go ahead and put the oven back on, because I had it on earlier. I'm going to put it on 400 degrees and let that preheat. Now you may be thinking 400 degrees, wow, Raina, that's quite a lot. 400 degrees, but the reason why I put it on 400 degrees is because I'm not putting it in a Dutch oven. If I were putting it in the Dutch oven, it would be 450 degrees and preheated. So I'm just going to move this over, and this is when you take your parchment paper. Now we're doing this for 2 reasons. Partly cleanliness, but the most important part is this parchment paper is going to act as a tool for us to place it on the pizza stone. Okay, so first thing we do is we take our little bit of flour. We don't want a whole lot. Okay, so we're just gonna place, that might be a little too much on that end, but we just want to put a little bit of flour down. And then you need to have very clean hands. We're going to place, and you know what I think I'm gonna do? I think I'm gonna sprinkle just a little on the top, just to make it a little bit less sticky. Just a little bit less sticky. Okay. Now you remember our dough scraper from earlier? I'm going to take this dough scraper and I'm going to scrape our dough right on to our parchment paper. Okay? Just going to tilt it out just like that. Okay? Did you see how much that doubled in size? That was just beautiful. You just want to get it all out. And don't be afraid of your dough. Oh, that smells wonderful. I wish you guys could smell. It just has that nice yeasty smell of bread. Already done, even though it's not finished. Okay, so from here, let me place this over here. From here, what I'm gonna do is get some of this on my hands, right? And then I'm just gonna kind of work the dough very little, very, very little, but I'm just gonna kind of work it because this is truly a no-knead dough. And the main reason why I'm doing this is because this is going to be a bread ball, okay? And so you just kind of want to work it where it's not really all that thick and sticky. So I'm picking up the dough and just kind of tucking the ends under because I want to make a nice dough ball. So you see that's how it looks underneath it. I'm just going to place that back. But it was looking nice and pretty into a dough ball, right? Okay. All right. So for me, this is nice enough, okay? So what I'm gonna do now, don't like that stuck on my hands like that. So what I'm gonna do right now is I'm going to take, you could use this bowl again if you cleaned it, but I'm gonna actually use this bowl, the big one, and I'm going to place this dough ball into this pan with the parchment paper so that it can kind of keep its shape and not spread out. Okay, and then we're gonna let it rise again or rest for like 20 to 15 minutes. Sometimes you can go 30 minutes or so, but anyway, I'm just gonna leave that like this. And again, I'm gonna cover it and be back shortly, and then we'll bake it. I just want you to see where it is in the bowl. That way you'll be able to tell when it rises again. Okay, so after I let it sit, I don't know if y'all can tell, but it's risen yet one more time. So all I'm gonna do now is take it out of this bowl, put it on my pizza stone, and let it bake at 400 degrees for 20 minutes, okay? And see guys, there you go. Homemade bread from scratch, made with my own 2 hands. Just beautiful. And I can't wait to cut into it, but you really need to let it rest and cool for 15 to 30 minutes before you actually cut into it. So I hope that this, here, let me turn around. Guys, this is a little crazy and I'm sorry about that, but I'm gonna be kind of cattywampus today, but I really hope that this video encourages you to try to make bread. The videos that I'll be doing that are in the kitchen like this is for all of our betterment and for our enrichment. I'm also going to be doing apple cider vinegar and other vinegars videos. That is coming up next. And the reason for that is because everybody should know there are so many health benefits with apple cider vinegar. But vinegars also can be used for medicinal purposes as well. So I'm going to show you how to make apple cider vinegar and, like I said, other vinegars from different fruits and vegetables and things like that. Some of them obviously will be just for taste, but a lot of them can be used for health purposes. So I hope you guys enjoyed this particular video. Make sure you like, thumbs the video up, share the video, share. I keep saying share our videos, and I don't know if a lot of you guys do that, but this is definitely one that needs to be shared, especially in this day and age. But anyway, I love you guys. I want you to have an absolutely wonderful evening, and wait until you see the pictures of this beautiful bread being cut up and served. Bye.
Can I get it? Put my hand on?
Do what?
Put my hand on.
Oh, you're good. Let me get your face. Taste testing the bread.
My God. When I dip it in, delicious.
And that's just a little olive oil with salt and Italian seasoning. And then he has a over medium egg with a little cheese and ketchup.
But we're going to do pizza with mozzarella cheese with homemade sauce that he made.
Yeah, that's one of the next ones. But this is our meal tonight. Simple, very simple meal, but yet filling. And
I'm having the pizza
you
meal
have to
in 2 hours.
You have to think about, if times got hard, just a simple meal of bread and egg, and you would be able to survive. You wouldn't have problems. So I just wanted you guys to see that this is simple eating, but it's delicious, it's nutritious, and you control what you put into your meal. Like I said, that's just a little salt with olive oil and Italian seasoning, which most people have in their homes anyway. And then a simple egg over medium with a little cheese and bread that I have actually buttered. Okay? Who knows? Maybe one day I'll teach you guys how to make butter. All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Say it again.
Bye-bye.